Now one of the most talked about priorities these days is a surge at the U.S. border, leaving Democrats on shaky ground ahead of some votes on a pair of bills moving through legislation right now. Joining us now to talk more in depth about the immigration bill under President Biden is Steve Maggi, an immigration attorney in St. Pete. Glad to have you here with us.
Pleasure to be with you.
So what do these two bills do, both separately or together?
Well, the first bill provides a direct path for dreamers, those kids who came in under DACA. It's a program for kids who came in under the age of 16 and have stayed in the U.S. to eventually become citizens, as well as people who have what's called temporary protected status. Because of humanitarian crises, there are people from 12 countries that have the possibility, if they're in the U.S., to apply for temporary protected status. So it allows those two groups to have a path to a green card and eventually citizenship. The second one, which is now being debated, is for agricultural workers, which are a very important part of the economy here in Florida with the orange groves, for example, and other industries, other parts of the country as well in agriculture, who have spent many years coming in and out and working temporarily during those seasons to also have a path to green card status and then eventually citizenship.
Well, we've been seeing what's happening at the U.S. border. How does what is happening there play into how that voting may go on these two bills? Is there enough support in Congress for these bills to pass? And how does that play into all that's happening?
That's a great question. It really is a numbers game. Today we saw the first bill get passed. There were 9 Republicans in the House of Representatives that were also on board, which gives you a little bit of hope that perhaps it could pass through the Senate, but we're talking about 10 out of 50 senators who are Republicans that would have to sign on to this bill or any bill that has to do with immigration. What's happening now is that the Republicans are using that as leverage, what's happening at the border, and they're building it up as a humanitarian crisis in order to say, we really can't focus on these bills right now when our priority should be securing borders. So it sounds like the debates we were having back 4 years ago.
Exactly. Back in 2014, 2015, during the Obama administration, we did have a very similar situation with all these kids coming from Central America. So many people saying this is very similar to what was happening there. What is different, though, about this now?
I think that even Republicans realize now that this immigration system is broken. And so some people say you have to wait until we fix the issues at the border. We need to have a comprehensive system to prioritize the people who are coming in and to process them. But what about all the people who are left, like the DACA recipients and the people with TPS and the agricultural workers? You can't leave them in the lurch for years on end until you figure out the best system to process people at the border. You have to do this in a piecemeal way. We know that the immigration reform won't be passed comprehensively as one law. So we have to do it piece by piece. And I think that it's possible to do both at the same time. The issue here with the Republicans is they're using that as leverage to justify not voting for a bill that has nothing to do with the border situation. It has to do with people who have been here for many years, who provide really a lot of benefits and who are hardworking and really deserve a chance to be able to stay. That's very different from the border debate, which is obviously very, very, it incites a lot of emotion in people, and people have very differing opinions. But the TPS people, the agricultural workers, and the DACA recipients, or the dreamers, are a totally different story, and I think we need to keep those separate.
So speaking about the emotional side of all of this, some people already calling for the new Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, to step down because people are saying it is out of control at the border. They say Homeland Security does not seem to have a handle on this situation. Can you weigh in on that at all for us?
Wow, I can't imagine how difficult a job that is. If you're already within the first 100 days being scrutinized so much. We have to remember that a lot of this wave that's coming in is a product or a byproduct of what happened before. There were 75,000 people that were stuck at the border who were going to apply for asylum, and they were stuck there all of last year. A lot of those people remained. And so it's not just a new wave, but it's the people who wanted to get their chance to apply for asylum, and those are the people that are coming in now. In 2019, we had almost 1 million people that came in through the border, and a lot of them were returned to Mexico. So the numbers don't look as strong as they were in 2019. So I think that it's all skewed a little bit based on people's opinions, how they use the numbers. But I don't think it's a crisis like it has been in the past.
Well, you are an immigration attorney. How frequent are you getting calls into your law firm there? What kind of advice are you getting to these people who need some sort of representation, especially the kids? They don't necessarily understand all that may be happening right now with all of this.
Yeah, one major shift has been that under the Trump administration, there was a specific policy in place to purposely separate these kids from their families. And now at least this new administration is letting them come into the U.S. to present their cases. And FEMA's been called in to make sure that the facilities are in place because of COVID and because of humanitarian concerns that protect these children while they're being processed. The process is also being accelerated in terms of evaluating whether they have solid cases or not. What we can't change is the fact that there are many families that are actually sending their children, a lot of them teenagers, over the border by themselves because they know that the kids will be accepted. And so that's something that's very hard to maneuver. I would say we need to be patient with this, and we have to have some humanity in all this and how we're balancing our policies and our concerns and what we want, because these are kids and it's not their fault that they're being brought in, much like the DACA kids. They're being left to cross the border on their own. So what are we going to do? Just leave them in the lurch? We have to do something.
Well, let me ask you this before we go. Do you think that these bills will be another attempt to address the ongoing issue of immigration here in America, something that has seemingly failed time and time again in years prior to all of this?
Yeah, and I'm an optimist. That's the only way I could do my job for this long. But we've seen so many of these bills go through the House and then not get passed in the Senate. And so I'm not sure with 60 needed in the Senate if that's going to be possible, unless there's some maneuvering, and that's what's going to come next. You're going to see the Republicans ask for something back in order for them to pass this, and you'll probably see a few different iterations of these bills before something gets passed.
What do you think that might entail from the Republican side, and how do you think the Democrats will respond to something of that nature?
I wish I had that magic answer. I just know that the DACA kids and the people who have TPS really, on the human side, they really have the favor and the backing of a lot of Republicans as well. It's just a question of how those Republicans can justify to their constituents how they actually pass that. And so I'm not sure what will happen, but I'm very positive that this first bill that's passed will actually become law.
All right, Steve, thank you so much for joining us tonight. A pleasure to speak with you once again. Good to see you.
Same. Thanks so much.